Welcome to the sports show. Hold on, Sidney Hartman. We're edited now. Mike, Max, Eric, Nelson, Lavelli, Neil, and Sid Hartman. Let's start then with the Minnesota Vikings. Are you comfortable with Josh Freeman as your starting quarterback going into New York?
No.
You talked to him the other day. It looked like you guys were having a few laughs.
What's that got to do with the fact I talked to him?
Well, it looked like you were very comfortable with him.
Yeah, well, I got a one-on-one with him. He hasn't been around long enough. I still think Ponder should be the quarterback.
Yeah. Do you think ultimately, this is still early in the season?
I think he will be.
I do too now. I'm almost convinced that Ponder's going to resurface. Now, talking to him the other day, he's talking about, hey, you want to trade me? Maybe we should consider that. What do you think?
I talked to two guys who make decisions, and they made it very clear we have not given up on Ponder.
I would hope that's the case.
Yeah.
That's BS.
We'll see. They don't have Harrison Smith. They don't have Khalil.
Maybe they'll have him.
They don't have Robinson. That one will be any loss. He gave about 68 touchdowns.
Josh Robinson. Yeah.
And I think there's something wrong with Adrian Peterson.
No, even if he's 90%, he's still good. Eric?
Yeah, no doubt.
Are you comfortable with Josh Freeman as the quarterback?
I am, although 3 quarterbacks 7 weeks in is not a good sign.
No.
But I think it's an 11-game audition for Josh Freeman. I believe if you look at his resume, what he did in Tampa, he has a better quarterbacking resume than Christian Ponder and Matt Castle. Now, is that saying he's the savior? No.
What did he do in Tampa?
Well, he threw 80 touchdown passes, and he had some success. They were 10-6 a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And they ran the coach out.
Let me tell you something. I know some pretty good people in Tampa.
You do? Who?
If he didn't have a lot of baggage, they wouldn't let him go.
I think the coach is the problem down there, Greg Schiano.
I agree.
The coach convinced the general manager and the owners that he's bad news to keep around.
So we're going to find out, Lavelle, was it the coach or was it the player?
All right, we are.
We're going to find out, because if Josh Freeman's a good guy, we're going to find out it was the coach.
No doubt, no doubt. And it's a funny way of showing support for Ponder, Sid, by bringing in another quarterback and then starting him a few weeks later. If they still supporting Ponder, that's a funny way of showing.
It's a strange way of doing it.
Exactly. Obviously, Ponder must have started the season on a short leash, and now they've decided to move on.
And he didn't know it. That's what happened.
Ponder's hurt. He can't play.
He looked good in practice. He looked good in practice.
Well, you know what? The Vikings need to articulate that better to take the heat off of them.
You're right.
Yeah.
If that's truly the case.
He's got an injury.
If that's the case, they need to articulate that to Ponder.
I'm telling you.
Because talking to Ponder, he sure doesn't seem to be
He won't say anything.
Well, he talked about.
Yeah, he said something. He said maybe I should
Talk to me. Told me that if he got hit in the ribs and it affected his heart, he could.
Well, then print it.
I'm not sure he has the backing of the room, though. I think you go back to the Green Bay playoff game when he did not play a series, yanked himself, playoff game, Packers. You know, you're trying to go to the Super Bowl. I think he lost some cred in the room.
The other thing that struck me about this, the other thing that struck me about this is
I'm just telling you what I've heard guys say.
When Leslie Frazier talked about
What's hurt?
I have heard people say that they thought that he should have went out for a series, and then if he doesn't have it, come out.
Think about this scenario, though, Lavelle, before we make. Okay, so if Ponder plays last year in that playoff game, let's say the Vikings lose 28-21, and he plays pretty well, because he'd been playing pretty well at the end of the season. It's probably Christian Ponder and Joe Webb right now, because we'd have never seen Joe Webb. Webb would have still been, we'd assumed, good enough to back him up. They wouldn't have gone out and got Matt Castle or Josh Freeman. You know what I'm saying?
One game.
That close.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
If he had just played, and if they had lost, but he'd played well enough.
Right.
Joe Webb's a wide receiver. He got more snaps last week than that great wide receiver from Tennessee,
Cordero Patterson,
who they gave up 3 draft choices for.
You don't think he's the guy?
Webb got 6 more snaps last week than Patterson.
Maybe because they're so far behind, they want to see if Webb can play. I don't know.
That's one of the weird things, too. I think you need to see Patterson on the field more. Going back to the other thing about the Ponder support is that Leslie Frazier let the cat out of the bag, talking about how the players in the Vikings have reached out to Freeman, telling him how great of a program it was. You know, they were recruiting the guy.
That goes back to what I just said.
That tells me the clubhouse doesn't have Ponder's back.
Let's have a real conversation here. when Christian Ponder got married in the middle of last season like that, it did not help him. And I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. With other players, it did not help him.
I'm not against the guy getting married.
But
if he's going to work in the morning with a smile on his face because he's got a beautiful wife next to him, more power to him.
right, but
I'm
I'm
not
just
gonna
saying,
blame
when you're the
Samantha.
leader, it's different.
Yeah.
When you're the leader, it's different.
And my only point on Green Bay is, I believe he was injured, but I think there's a number of quarterbacks, one who used to be here, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning is still playing. They go out and they got to be dragged off the field with a tow truck before they wave the white flag. And I was told by a veteran Viking guy who's been there from day one, he couldn't believe that he didn't start. And I think that's where the erosion began. That's my opinion.
When you heard CCO was in bad trouble?
Yeah, when my tooth came out in the ear last 2 weeks ago, yeah.
He still talks.
What are you going to do? I just kept talking, man.
We'll see.
Yep, I'm going to get a job in Arkansas next year.
I'd be shocked if they don't get beat bad tonight.
Tomorrow night. But what you're forgetting is the New York Giants, their offensive line got old overnight. I mean, they got nothing there.
Yeah, but it's Eli Manning against the Vikings secondary. And it's too bad that Josh Freeman isn't a cornerback or a defensive back because Eli may get healthy on Monday night against that secondary.
Why do you think Antoine Winfield would want to come play for the Vikings?
They won't give him enough money.
But why would he want to?
Why? He'd come if they give him money. But he feels that he sits there in Houston, somebody's going to get a cornerback hurt.
The value keeps going up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The good teams get a cornerback hurt.
That's right. If a good team needs a cornerback, he's going to get a lot of money.
And Antoine's not afraid to sit.
He got cut from Seattle, though. I mean, how many teams want him?
But that's a good defense that let him go. He's a character guy who can make
You're
tackles.
right.
You can bring him in on the nickel. They miss him.
It's a good defense to let him go, but that means the Vikings and Seattle have both passed on him. That means there's got to be a step or a half a step missing there somewhere.
I
right?
think so.
Not that he couldn't help you, but don't think he's going to turn your program.
He's a 15-year guy. That's a good point.
If he's on the Vikings right now, he has that secondary a little more settled than
When
they are right now.
he is, and Eric can testify, he's a good guy.
She had to let him
Absolutely.
go because they got better cornerbacks. The Vikings let him go because they didn't want to pay him the money.
Well, Mike Tice said, you don't cut good players ever in this league.
Good.
Take a break. Come back. The Sports Show.
The Sports Show is brought to you in part by Canterbury Park 24/7 Card Club. Don't forget the Card Club at Canterbury Park. Cambria, makers of quality quartz surfaces. Call 1-866-CAMBRIA. Ticket King. For the best price on tickets anywhere, try Ticket King. Soundpoint Audiology. Life is worth hearing. And Cuisine Concepts. Bar Abilene at Lagoon and Fremont in uptown Minneapolis. And Franklin Street Bakery at 11th and Franklin in South Minneapolis, just down from Mall of America Field. And Taste of the NFL. Proud to be the premier Super Bowl party with a purpose to support hunger relief locally and nationally.
There it is, locally owned, nationally known. Go say hi to Pat, and man, do they have good food. Coming downtown for a sporting event or anything else, J.D. Hoyt's is the stop. Now, Sydney, you talked about it during the commercial break. And normally, I don't like to let people inside what we're talking about during the commercial breaks, but the Viking defense has been pathetic. And there's talk that some of the coaches and the players aren't getting along so well, assistant coaches and the players on that side of the ball.
Schism?
Well, I got a few friends and coaches in the NFL and a few general managers. And I call them up and I ask them, what do you think of Ponder? How can you blame Ponder, they say. He gave him a lead with 55 seconds to play. He gave him a lead with 11 seconds to play. He gave him a lead with Cleveland. I mean,
so where did they misdiagnose this defense in terms of putting it together?
the defense is the trouble. And the writers in this town, they won't admit that. I wrote
Why?
that. I don't know.
I mean, you have some juice over there at the paper. Don't you kind of set the tone for what you guys are going to, how you're going to cover
I
it?
don't tell them what to write.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
Just like, how do you
All
think?
right, all right.
This must have just happened the other day, huh?
How do you figure
He
this?
walks in through the front door screaming at people about headlines.
How do you figure this team up? They almost go to the Super Bowl. The next year they're in a crap
Not good.
house.
Yeah.
They almost go again, and then they're terrible again. Got something to do with coaching.
Well, I think you look at the whole organization. It starts with an owner who's got legal issues, and then you got a GM who did pick a quarterback who, at the very least, in Christian Ponder, is that was a risk. But the defense, he's right. They're giving up almost 32 points a game.
Over.
You're
You got
asking
nothing.
any quarterback to score 33 every week to win. That's an impossible task.
Do you think, LaBelle, that the Wilfs signing Josh Freeman was a way to take the spotlight off of them and their legal troubles?
Well, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about it in that way. And I don't know if it's that. I just think they saw an opportunity to get a better quarterback down the road. My issue was the defensive line. I think the whole problem with the defense starts with that D line, man. If they get better pressure on the quarterback, that doesn't make your secondary look as awful as it's been, because the quarterback suddenly has less time to get rid of the ball. If you start getting pressure on the quarterback, you bail out your secondary. It's not happening on both ends. You get a bad secondary and an ineffective defensive line, and when that happens, it implodes.
And LaBelle, I
it's
think,
too bad the Wolves couldn't sign a fancy middle linebacker.
Right. I think the middle layer is also a problem, and they can't get out on third downs. They give up too many third down and long situations, and the huge plays. You look at the play. Last week, it's 14-3, early third. Cam Newton hits Brandon LaFell for 79 yards. That's the end of the game.
Game
you
was
can't
over.
give up that play when you've struggled just to make it 14-3.
Hang on, Sid,
Compare the defensive stats with the offensive stats.
how do you do that
There's no, well, what they've allowed.
versus what they've gained?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
And what the offense, how many points they've scored. They're 5th in the league in offense. You know that?
And what are they in defense?
Huh?
What are they in defense?
30th. 31st.
31st.
The Giants are better than...
They're not a team built to win shootouts.
No.
Their defense
No.
has to allow 24 or less on a weekly basis
Okay.
for them to compete, in my opinion.
Sydney, have we ever seen anyone play the quarterback position, however it goes the rest of the year, as well as Peyton Manning has played it the first part of this year? You've seen a lot of quarterbacks in your day.
Well, that team spent some money. They got Manning. They got the wide receiver from
Welker.
from the Patriots. Decker's as good a wide receiver as in the league. They spent some money, and they got some great players.
But is Peyton Manning, has he played that position this year as well as you've ever seen it played?
Great. They got a great offensive line, and they protect the heck out of them.
LaBelle, you're going to...
It seems like that's a constant. Denver always has a good offensive line. Going back to when Elway was there.
Gibbs was the coach
And
there.
when they had Terrell Davis running back and all the other running backs they've had, they've always had a good
That
offensive
zone
line.
blocking.
And it starts, that's the engine of your team, the offensive and defensive lines. And from there, Peyton Manning can come up, diagnose what's going on with the defense, and start picking it apart. And he's got weapons all over the place.
The best you've ever seen?
I'd say, through the, almost the first half of the season, I mean, he's elite, and his work ethic, his passion, I've never seen anything like it. But I
You're
will
talking
say
about a
this.
team built for a shootout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, when you give up 48 to Dallas like
Yep.
they did a couple of weeks ago, to me that's a red flag. Kansas City plays defense. They're well coached by Andy Reid. They have 2 meetings left with
That's
Denver.
right.
Don't sleep on the Chiefs.
I
and
agree.
the former Viking coach,
Brad Childress, your good buddy.
he's in charge of the offense.
Is he in charge?
He's in charge.
Well, they're a defensive team.
I had a long talk with Leslie Frazier the other day about, coaching. He played for Mike Ditka, right? And Andy Reid, he said, was the best that he's ever been around at being able to lose a game and move on.
Who's that?
Andy Reid. Coach, he said he had an ability when we lost the game to put that in the rearview mirror and get the team focused quicker than anybody's seen. He said this guy doesn't get even as much credit as he deserves for what he can do. From afar, he looks kind of aloof and,
Right.
Those that genius that owns the Eagles. I wonder what he thinks of.
Doesn't look so good now,
Reid.
does he?
There's a rule about 10 years. Coaches at one place for 10 years, and then it kind of the time runs out. Danny
think
Green
that's
was
true?
on it. Marty Schottenheimer in Kansas City. I think there's some validity to that.
Take a break, come back, the sports show. What about those Gophers? Sid will give us...
The Sports Show is brought to you in part by Allery's, the original St. Paul sports bar, now with 65 beers on tap. The Sports Show is brought to you in part by Case Law, for all your legal needs, not your typical law firm. Griffin Bail Bonds. It's better to know us and not need us than to need us and not know us. And Perfect Ash, that tobacco place in Lilydale where you're only a stranger once.
I was just there the other day visiting with Bruce Bonine and the whole group, man. They got it set up. Charlie, go see Charlie out there. You talk about a guy that knows the car business. Audi is a great vehicle for all seasons as we transition in, get into that all-wheel drive. You're going to love that Q7 or the A8. Welcome back to the sports show. The Gopher football team went to Evanston and played Northwestern, and I think most of us had kind of run out of hope that they could win that game, 12 points. And you had not.
They were tough.
You believed.
Well, I believe they had a chance only because their two best offensive players were not available.
Northwesterns.
Yeah. I mean, and Wisconsin just killed them the week before. They didn't have any healthy players, and Minnesota got them at the right time. And I think Nebraska can't stop anybody to give up a ton of points. I think they got a chance to beat Nebraska.
I told you during the week, did I not tell you, though, that Jerry Kill might make that trip, and he did.
Yeah.
Did you say that really?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does this mean? Does this mean that Jerry is getting better? Is he getting close? Because to me, you're causing a distraction by making a 4 a.m. drive from here to.
No, I don't. I think.
Is he going to drive to Penn State?
I honestly think that what they're doing
enough to fly there.
is, they're trying to figure out, as I understand it, and I'm certainly not a doctor, but what's the right cocktail medication for him? So it's a process, and can we get to that point where we feel comfortable?
Should he be totally removed from the situation to just focus on getting the right mixture before he gets back in?
I know what you're saying.
It looks like
Lavelle.
he's straddling the line here.
I know what you're saying, and I don't think that's his idea. I think he's trying to get as much out. And I honestly think, and being around Jerry Kill a lot, and Sid, you'll say this too, that he really believes that he's got an obligation to that team to be there as much as he can. Don't you think?
Yeah, but I would think if he had another seizure, it would be the end of his coaching job.
If he had one during a game, he probably fears that,
But
right?
it'd be his decision, though. It couldn't be the school saying you need to step down. Jerry would have to decide on his own to step away.
Right.
He could be pressured.
That's a touchy situation for a school to have to remove a guy because of epilepsy. That would.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Eric.
But if you become a distraction, as much as he wants to coach, that's in his DNA. I think at some point he's going to have to say, you know what, it's not good for the program that I become the story. Because if you look at like ESPN.com, the headline yesterday was, Kill makes trip to Northwestern. It wasn't about Minnesota beating Northwestern. And that's a huge win.
I know what you're saying.
I'm still not drinking the maroon and gold Kool-Aid like Sid, but Nebraska's got a history of thumping the Gophers. But it was a big win.
But I
I
honestly believe, knowing him like I've gotten to know him, that he tried to do that as quietly and obviously as less of a distraction. He tried to sit in the back of the booth, tried to sneak down without the media as much as he could. But I think he feels an obligation to those kids to give them every chance to win. Sid?
He made a statement to people when he made that, decided to take the time off. I don't want to live this way. Mm-hmm. You just can't live this way. And Mayo Clinic will tell you that 70% of the people who have epilepsy are cured.
They can control it
If they
with the right
control it.
medication. So they're
But
trying to find the right medication.
He doesn't control it. Here last year, you read in the paper about some kid had a bad accident on a farm. He gets Rebecca, and they drive to Mayo Clinic. They don't even know the kid, and he does so many of those things that he can't do.
You mean his lifestyle in terms of just trying to keep
Right.
that pace?
Well, and I think,
Now, you know how that is, Sid. You can't keep as you get older, you can't keep a pace.
all the appearances they make.
Yeah, I mean, as you get older, that pace has to slow down. I mean, just think when you were 52, you really slowed down at that point.
well, and that's back when they were going to Rose Bowls. Well, the other thing is, there are millions of people that have epilepsy and they function in their jobs.
Yeah.
Can you function as a Big Ten coach? I know Neil Young, the rock star, and
A lot
Danny
that we
Glover,
didn't
the
even know
actor,
about, yeah.
they're epileptics and they've done very well. But can you be the coach in a D1 school and do what you need to do? It's a high-pressure job.
Yeah.
We know that.
Lavelle, Boston wins last night over the Detroit Tigers.
Yes.
As you watch these playoffs, you really realize how far away the Twins are from being able to play with these teams.
No doubt, no doubt. And the Detroit team's a strong pitching team. For the life of me, I don't know why Jim Williams took Max Scherzer out of the game last night and brought his weakest aspect of his team, the bullpen, into the game. That's when you let your horse go. That's when you take the reins off and let the guy pitch as long as he can. And taking Scherzer out, I think, just set them up for defeat. But you look at the Red Sox team. You got one rock star in the middle, two, David Ortiz and Dustin Pedroia, but they're surrounded by like these grinded out, gritty guys, who don't make a lot of mistakes.
That's not what you think of when you think of Boston,
Exactly, and they come up with a couple grand slams. They have a solid pitching staff. Lester looks terrific right now. He's getting on the inside part of the play. Oh, so now I can't talk now. So, wow. How about
They got
that,
a great
Sid?
bullpen.
Yeah.
Okay, we're done talking about that now. Let's just take a break. And
It will
we'll
be a
come
very
back.
good World
Sid
Series.
just gave us the wrap. Stay with us.
Thanks.
The Sports Show is brought to you in part by Case Law, for all your legal needs, not your typical law firm. Griffin Bail Bonds. It's better to know us and not need us than to need us and not know us. And Perfect Ash, that tobacco place in Lilydale where you're only a stranger once.
There it is. Taste of the Vikings coming soon. It's a fun night. Wayne Kostrowski will be out in full force leading up, of course, to the Super Bowl. $150 goes to a great cause. Find out more. Vikings.com/taste. How do you feel right now? Honest opinion.
What?
I'm getting to that. About the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Minnesota Timberwolves, I think they'll be pretty good. I think when you got 3 superstars on your team,
Pekovic's not a superstar.
I think Edelman is trying to. Everybody's all excited about him. I think he's like calm them down.
Keep them.
They're not that good and all that kind
What
of
does
stuff.
Flip think? What do you think Flip thinks?
Flip
Really?
thinks they're pretty good. If they can keep, what's the guy who's been hurt?
Which one? There's about 8 of them.
Yeah, really.
Love.
Kevin Love.
Kevin Love.
Pekovic,
Ricky
Rubio,
Rubio,
Love,
yeah.
Buttinger. Which one?
Buttinger, yeah. Start with Buttinger. He's out already.
Yeah, if they keep him healthy, I think they'll be tough.
Okay.
Well, I know there's been this discussion about them having outside shooting, but I like the roster. I think Peck, Love, and Rubio make a decent, not a big 3, but it's a decent triumvirate there. I think Pekovic's above average center. They got to stay on the court and they got to play defense.
Eric, how concerned are you about the Wild's inability to score goals? 2-1 they lose last night in the shootout.
Yeah, I mean, this was not a good road trip. It seemed like they had a little mojo going, a 3-game winning streak, and then it all went down with Toronto and Tampa and Florida.
What do you mean?
The road trip don't mean a thing.
Why?
He's playing everybody. He's trying to decide who.
But when you score one goal a night,
No. We've moved from Timberwolves to Wild.
Oh, wow.
Ice.
The road trip in preseason basketball, you're right, doesn't mean anything.
When
But
you're
the one
scoring
for the
one goal a
Wild
night,
does.
you're asking your goalie to pitch a shutout.
Wild are up and down. They score goals in one game, then they
Lately they haven't even been up.
And once again, it's the whole thing about, we're getting shots on goals, and as long as we're getting
Their only
opportunities.
goal last night was from a defenseman.
I know, that's the thing.
Against Florida.
The young guys are outplaying the veteran guys right now.
I'm going to get the paper to have you cover baseball,
There you go.
hockey, basketball.
Hey, you know what?
The Sports Show is brought to you in part by Canterbury Park 24/7 Card Club. Don't forget the Card Club at Canterbury Park. Cambria, makers of quality quartz surfaces. Call 1-866-CAMBRIA. Ticket King. For the best price on tickets anywhere, try Ticket King. Soundpoint Audiology. Life is worth hearing. And Cuisine Concepts. Bar Abilene at Lagoon and Fremont in uptown Minneapolis. And Franklin Street Bakery at 11th and Franklin in South Minneapolis, just down from Mall of America Field. And Taste of the NFL, proud to be the premier Super Bowl party with a purpose to support hunger relief locally and nationally.